Hello, my name is Bill Graham, and I'm here today to talk about my relationship and the relationship of an estate I'm representing for Mary Ann Barrie with the Elgin-St. Thomas Community Foundation. I personally came to St. Thomas a little over 40 years ago and worked in the accounting business with a firm I'm very proud of that I was managing partner with a firm called Graham Scott Enns, with offices here and in Aylmer, and a very long history in the community. What I found was that St. Thomas in Elgin County was a wonderful, community-minded, and very, very open, and very much a community that when they put their team together, good things happen. I was fortunate to meet a wonderful group of people over the years and experience a lot of good experiences with regard to many organizations. I worked with the St. Thomas Hospital, the YMCA, the Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Chamber of Commerce, and a great number, all of which basically let me get a pretty good feel for the community and get to know an awful lot of people and realize what a good city this is and how much we share in common. One of the special people that I was fortunate to meet over that time and become a good friend with was Mary Ann Barrie. Mary Ann did not seek out the limelight, but she was a true supporter of her community. She grew up in St. Thomas, and she continuously and quietly supported so many organizations. Very much at the top of the list was the hospital, St. Anne's Church, the YWCA, the YMCA, continuously supported the food bank, and there were just so many more organizations that quietly benefited from the benefits that came from being a friend of Mary Ann Barrie. Mary Ann graduated back in the 50s from St. Joe's High School, and then she went to Western, and after being at Western, she graduated from law school in the late 50s. At that time, there were approximately 3 ladies in the 100 graduates. So to some degree, she was a groundbreaker, but didn't really stand out or push that point. She just quietly showed that she very, very capable young lady. She was successful in her own quiet way, but she was very well trusted, and she became a personal advisor and in the inner circle to Prime Minister Lester Pearson and Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, who both valued her opinion very strongly. At one point, she was appointed the chair of the Canadian Radio Television Commission and was probably one of the most prominent and successful St. Thomas people that have moved on to a larger stage, but she did it all quietly and without fanfare. She showed her greatest loyalty in 1980 when she gave up so much of her legal career and came back to St. Thomas to look after her family. Her parents, her dad was ill, and she worked with her mother to give him support, and she continued to be her mother's best friend until her mother's passing about 2005. Mary Ann herself passed away just 2.5 years ago, and at that time, we'd had a number of discussions about her financial wishes. In her will, she designated substantial bequests to many local organizations, such as the ones that I mentioned previously that she was involved with. But she also had a significant pool of funds which she said, I want to selectively contribute where the community has the greatest need. We talked at length, for example, about having a hospice in St. Thomas, but she couldn't make a donation at the time of her passing because we had not received approval to have a hospice in this community. And even at that, if the approval had come through, Mary Ann was a wise business person, and she wanted to make sure that even the designation was good, a great thing, but she wanted to make sure that this was going to be viable and fully supported by the community. When Mary Ann was loyal, you had a great friend, and she was a great friend to this community. She remembered her roots and left a bequest, a substantial bequest, to St. Joseph High School, pledging to set up a scholarship to benefit students for a period of 15 to 20 years. As we sat down and talked about the required administration for such a long-term project, clearly this brought to mind the idea of talking to the people at the Elgin-St. Thomas Community Foundation. As we talked to the officials at the Community Foundation, and Terry Carroll in particular, we found that they were very flexible, and we both had the same goal, working to the mutual benefit of our community. One of the goals that the foundation has, and has me talking to you a bit today, is that we want to outline the benefits of that foundation and explain that this is not for the select few, but for a large portion of our population that could consider some benefit by working with the foundation and paying back to this community, which has been so good to us all. Speaking as a former accountant, there's a number of areas, and there's people far more specialized than I am to talk about it, but one of the things that happened as we had the luxury of taking the distribution of the funds over a long time by putting it into a fund, we got an immediate tax deduction by getting a receipt from the foundation. We're fortunate to have the St. Thomas Elgin community present here in St. Thomas and Elgin, and I think there's a lot of people, if they take the time to sit back and look at their wishes and look at their needs, will find that this is not intimidating, but rather a very rewarding experience to see the opportunity to share their success with others and reinvest for the future so that it's a better place for their family in the future.